Joining me now, Deputy Assistant to President Trump, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, Dr. Gina.
My first question for you, Dr. Gorka, I can't resist, is just what is it like to go from the life you had before to the life you have now, where you're really inside and up close with the President of the United States? Just what surprises you on a daily basis?
Well, look, it's living the American dream. I chose this country. I'm a legal immigrant to the greatest nation on God's earth. I became an American 5 years ago, and now I'm walking around the West Wing every day, serving the most powerful man in the world. So, this is America. We're the beacon on the hill. And it's just, through the grace of God that Donald Trump won this election. And I'm honored to be just a small cog in the wheel that is making America great again.
That's so awesome. Dr. Gorka, the elitists in D.C. In the bubble today were clutching their pearls, as they will, as the president announced the new immigration bill. But I think most people, that is maybe the people between the two coasts, are on board with common sense reforms to our immigration system. I mean, if you have a family, you don't go out and feed the people in the street until you have your family fed. Why not want full employment for Americans before bringing people in who become dependent on the welfare system?
Absolutely. So the system that we inherited is completely broken. The idea that advanced nations like Australia and New Zealand can have immigration policies based upon what is good for the people who are already in the country. And the question of what a new immigrant brings to that community, why should we not have the same? A fraction of those that get green cards in America do so because there is some actual concrete benefit that they're bringing to the country. The rest is almost automatic through issues of duration or family connection. How does that serve the poorest in our nation? How does that serve? When we flood a country with unskilled labor, what happens to those people who want jobs at the bottom of the economic environment, who are going to be pushed out of that job or going to have to be accepting pay that is a fraction of what they're used to because somebody comes along who says, I'll do it for 50% because then I can save some money and send it back home. That's not good for any American, whatever their skin color, whatever their ethnic background.
And the first thing they did was jump to the identity politics that we're all so familiar with, that I believe, by the way, are a big part of what lost the last election for the left. But economists agree, Dr. Gorka, and you know this, that the current policy as it exists, as you alluded, hurts minorities and current immigrants the most. So my question to those who are opposed to the president's proposal: why would they want to hurt minorities and current immigrants with their policies by keeping it the same?
Great question. You should ask somebody from the DNC. The bottom line is they don't care about the pain they cause. For them, it is ideological. They want to have as much migration, as much mass migration, as much illegal migration. Why? Because think about the other thing it's connected to. Why would the Democrat Party want as much migration and as much illegal migration and at the same time not want voter ID? Why do we think that is?
Yeah, well, I want you to go ahead and draw that line for us, because that is exactly where I was going to take you. I wanted you to drill down to the real motivations here, because I think that people forget, my background's psychology, Dr. Gorka, and I think people forget, you allude to this a lot in the hits that you do, but why do people forget about motivation? Whether you're looking at President Trump and why he wanted to be president, I couldn't imagine a reason why this president wanted to be president other than he wanted to do something great for the country. It makes no logical, motivational sense otherwise. I want you to talk about what the motivation of the left is in their policies where the math just simply doesn't match their words.
Okay, so two things. You really should ask Debbie Wasserman Schultz or Hillary, but let me give you, as somebody looking from the outside at the national security ramifications and the damage to our democracy, what the most likely motivations are. Number one, they want to lock in a constituency which will allow them to win every election for the future of America. If you allow in as many immigrants as possible, if you allow in as many illegal immigrants, if you have catch and release policies, think about this. Under the Obama administration, you caught an illegal immigrant, you had to release them under their own recognizance. And at the same time, you say anybody can get an ID. Anybody can get an ID in California. Or you say, you don't need an ID to vote. Then what are you doing? You're creating an instant voting block.
Yep.
That means you've locked in dependent people. Secondly, listen to the speech that Hillary Clinton gave to Goldman Sachs. The Democrat Party has been captured by radicals. John F. Kennedy would not be allowed into the Democrat Party today.
No.
And they don't believe that America is a force for good. Hillary said in her speech to those bankers, borders are bad. She said we should have no borders in the whole of our hemisphere. From Canada all the way down to South America, no borders. Borders are bad. For them, America was the problem. And along comes a businessman. He doesn't need to be president. Why would he go through the attacks? Why would he take no pay when he's a billionaire? He has done this for one reason, because he knew the system was broken. He knew the establishment didn't serve Americans, and he loves this country. And that's why Donald Trump is the president,
right,
and Hillary Clinton is crying into her Cheerios.
It's as if they can't learn, Dr. Gorka. It seems like you look at their identity politics, their victimhood status. They're using people for votes that you're talking about right now, using people for their own power and money, by the way, living off of the backs of the most vulnerable. You have a special perspective on this, I think, being from where you're from and having seen America. So if you could speak to the people who are perhaps immigrants who are just starting to understand our system, or just for the sheeple out there who just sort of follow blindly because they're compassionate, touchy-feely types, what would you say to them?
Number one, I'd say my being an American is not an accident of birth. I chose this country, and it is the greatest country on God's earth. My parents lived through fascism during World War II and through communism behind the Iron Curtain. I was brought up on a mother's milk that told me freedom is as fragile as it is precious. And that's why I chose this country, because this is the last great hope. And also, it's the only country in human history built on the principles of liberty and freedom. But where do those principles come from? What are they wedded to? They're not gifted to you by a government. They come from God. That's what our founding fathers said. Endowed by our Creator. Our inalienable rights come from God. And the left denies that. They deny objective truth. They have a collectivist mindset. And that is why what you said is so very, very true. It's not about the individual. It's not about the dignity of the individual. How can they become an immigrant who is successful? How can they be prosperous?
Right.
No, it's about creating the collective, the Star Trek Borg that's going to keep the Democrats in Congress. That's all they care about.
Yeah, and how ironic that they really started losing Dr. Gorka when they did vote to take God out of their platform. Dr. Gorka, thank you so much for all you do. Thank you for being with us. God bless you.
God bless you and your viewers. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.